Well, I would say Benavidez, but he's too, you know, that weight class is too high for him. So, you know, where he's at now is great.
David, do you think Crawford will fight you if he beats Canelo?
Nah, I wouldn't fight Crawford. I'm at 175.
And Terence Crawford, no, ain't doing that fight. Maybe planning on vacating the belts. No, we ain't gonna vacate the belt.
Coach Brian "Bomac" McIntyre made headlines shortly after the fight when asked about Turki Alalshikh's suggestion of a matchup between Terence Crawford and David Benavidez. Bomac firmly dismissed the idea, stating that Crawford didn't need such a fight.
It's gonna sit where we need to sit for a minute, and then, just like I said, get back in the gym and do our thing.
Ennis?
Absolutely. And he don't want it.
He also reminded fans of when he explained that sparring with Boots Ennis wouldn't help Canelo, since Crawford is an entirely different level compared to Ennis.
What does this performance prove about the Ennis sparring? You guys were largely silent. I told you it don't make no difference. Didn't I say it? I said that don't mean shit. I don't give a damn about that. Yeah. I said that, didn't I? Yeah, in one of those interviews, I said that. Don't mean shit, because he's no Bud Crawford. I'm not taking nothing from Ennis, you know, Bozy, them over there, them my guys. Shit, but bringing in that, which is good for Canelo, but it didn't do no good in the fight.
The whole Benavidez discussion was actually sparked by Turki Alalshikh himself. Just hours after Crawford's monumental victory, the influential Saudi boxing figure tweeted, "Congratulations to Terence Bud Crawford on his historic win and for becoming the first fighter ever to be undisputed in 3 different divisions. Also, a huge shout out to Saul Canelo Alvarez for an incredible performance." Then, as if setting up the next move on the chessboard, he added a question that lit up boxing Twitter: "Can David Benavidez still make 168 pounds?" Greg Hackett addressed the sudden talk of a Crawford vs. Benavidez fight, stressing that it wasn't a serious matchup under consideration. He suggested the idea was being fueled more by hype and money than substance. Hackett also emphasized that Crawford didn't need Benavidez to validate his career, while Benavidez would be forced to drain himself trying to get back down to 168 after already moving up to 175.
And they think the money is going to keep getting him out there. That fight is pointless. The fight is pointless because nobody ever talked about that fight until now. And then I don't feel like Bud needs a Benavidez. And then that would mean Benavidez would have to go into a different body and bring himself back down to 68 when he's already getting settled in at one.
Hackett went on to explain why the Crawford-Benvidez conversation was largely artificial. He framed it as a move by Turki Alalshikh to showcase his promotional power, but cautioned that boxing still needs to make sense beyond mere spectacle.
Benavidez had some tough tasks in front of him that he wanted to conquer before even talking like that. I don't even think he wanted to talk like that because there's really no point. He wanted the Canelo fight because Canelo was the man at 68. He was at 68. I don't think he cared about fighting Bud, and I don't think Bud cared about fighting Benavidez. That's just Turkey trying to pull rank. Turkey trying to show he got a...
One of the narratives going into the fight was whether Crawford could add another weight class to his resume. Many commentators claimed he was already a 4-division world champion, though technically he was not. Analysts like boxing commentator and YouTube voice Showbiz the Adult often questioned whether Crawford had truly justified the hype surrounding him through his resume. Critics have long argued that he lacked enough elite-level competition to fully prove himself at the highest stage.
4 greatest fighters of all time. Do you understand how improbable this is? I thought Bud had no chance. I lost 20 grand. Not only is Terence Crawford on my Mount Rushmore, like I said, if he were to win, because the probability of him winning against all the odds, I couldn't see it. I couldn't see how at all.
The narrative couldn't overshadow the brilliance of this historic bout, where Crawford moved up in weight and dismantled one of the sport's most established champions. His performance forced even his harshest critics to reconsider his legacy. Showbiz captured that transformation in the immediate aftermath of the fight, in a way that left a lasting impression.
That guy, he can face anybody in history and be a problem. Him right there. Not only that, I think this cements the fact that everybody avoided him. This right here answers everything. Not only is Terence Bud Crawford on my Mount Rushmore, but everybody avoided him. And that sheds more light on how he beat Errol Spence.
By moving up 2 weight classes to 168 pounds and capturing all 4 major belts, Bud became the first male boxer in history to be undisputed in 3 different divisions, a record no one else had achieved. So, while the four-division undisputed champion label was inaccurate, Crawford's accomplishment was historic in its own right. At the post-fight press conference after his unanimous decision loss to Terence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez surprised many with a bold statement. Rather than making excuses, he offered high praise for Crawford, admitting he believed Bud was the superior fighter.
And compare and contrast the fight between yourself and Floyd Mayweather Jr. and tonight's bout with Terence "Bud" Crawford, if you can.
No, I think Crawford is way better than Floyd Mayweather.
During the fight between Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez, veteran boxing journalist Dan Rafael shared his perspective as someone who has covered the sport for decades. He noted that he saw Canelo taking the early rounds, but emphasized that it was Crawford who impressed him most with the way he took command down the stretch.
I had Canelo ahead in the early going, but I thought Crawford did an amazing job closing that fight down in the last few rounds, where you really start to back the supposed bigger guy up, although for me, they looked about the same size. But that was a
Dan Rafael expanded on Crawford's achievement by highlighting the historical weight of his victory. He explained that this wasn't simply a fight handed to Crawford, but one he had long dreamed of and worked tirelessly to make a reality. Rafael pointed out that Crawford rarely had the chance to face naturally bigger opponents, as many doubted a fight between him and Canelo was ever realistic.
He dreamt this fight. He willed it to happen. A lot of people, not me, but a lot of people laughed at him, said, forget about it, no chance against a bigger guy like that. To Canelo, because everybody who has ever read me, followed me, listened to me knows I love Canelo. I think he's one of the greats of all time. I think you can make a really good argument that he's the greatest Mexican of all time, even more than Chavez. That said, he is in decline. He's been in decline for the last few years. He hasn't been what we've seen him at his best since he beat Caleb Plant. You know, that Caleb Plant, Billy Joe Sanders time frame. And, you know, even though he's winning fights, you know, the knockouts haven't happened. He's gotten tired in the later part of the fights. And it's just common, it's the oldest saying in boxing.
Sean Zittel, a respected boxing writer and ringside analyst, reflected on Terence Crawford's reputation and how much it had risen after his win over Canelo Alvarez. He admitted that as early as 2017, he recognized Crawford's elite skills, good enough to call him the best pound-for-pound fighter, but had never placed him among the absolute legends of the sport until now.
Back in 2017, I always acknowledged him as the best counterpuncher in the game, one of the great counterpunchers, but I didn't see him as Sugar Ray Leonard, Floyd Mayweather, Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson. I didn't see him as that. I saw him as the tier of greats right below that. Oscar, Shane, Mike McCallum, guys like that. And it turns out, no, he's with the best of the best.
Zittel went on to break down the technical side of Crawford's performance against Canelo. In his view, Crawford absorbed the power well and showed unexpected punch resistance at this weight. He noted that Canelo lost his rhythm once Crawford established his jab in the third and fourth rounds, gradually taking control of the fight.
I know Crawford felt it, but he had good punch resistance. He came up in weight beautifully, and then as time went on, his jab and his length, around that third and fourth round, really started to give Canelo fits. And then, number one, his bread and butter, his gift. Yes, he's got great tactics, great distance control, efficient footwork. He doesn't, and he took the air out of the ball when he wanted to in this.
By the time the fight took place, it was clear from the opening moments that Canelo Alvarez would try to rely on his size, experience, and power. Much of the pre-fight discussion centered on how, as a seasoned champion at super middleweight, Canelo knew how to handle moments of pressure. After his loss to Terence Crawford, Canelo posted a message to fans on Instagram. He did not complain, but instead accepted the defeat with humility, reflecting on his career with pride. He highlighted the sacrifices made with his team, expressed gratitude to his family and loyal fans, and gave special acknowledgement to his wife Fernanda for standing by him through it all. In his caption, he wrote, "I'm very proud of everything I've accomplished so far. You always want to win, but I accept this defeat with humility and learning. I'm very grateful to my team for all the sacrifices we've made together over the years. I already won because I have my family with me and millions of fans who have never stopped supporting me. Finally, thanks to Fernanda, my wife, for her patience and for never letting go of my hand during this whole process. Viva Mexico, you mother." On the other side, the winner and new legend, Terence Crawford, showed rare defiance during a post-fight press conference. In response to a reporter who had previously criticized him, Crawford openly mocked and flipped him off on camera. It wasn't just theatrics, it was Crawford directly pushing back against the media narrative that had shadowed him for so long.
The first ever in the 2, 3, or 4 belt era, and you became the second undisputed champion in 3 weight classes when there was only one champion back in 1938 with Henry Armstrong. That's a lot of stuff.
You hear that? You hear that?
Years ago, boxing insiders and media members often labeled him as boring, unable to draw, or only fighting nobodies. At this press conference, Crawford silenced those criticisms, standing on the sport's biggest stage and proving not only that he belonged there but also that his critics had been wrong all along.
It all goes hand in hand.
Can you describe what it all means to you to have, you just made like a whole resume of stuff tonight.
It means a lot to me because, you know, anybody can be a nobody, like I said, you know, and that's all they say I've been fighting is nobodies. So what can they say?
Canelo, as the undisputed champion heading into the defense, had everything on the line, not just his belts, but his identity. A loss meant he would no longer be champion and would leave the ring without the status that had defined his legacy. That loss came when Crawford won a unanimous decision to become the undisputed super middleweight champion. As a result, Canelo lost all his belts in the division and, with them, the undisputed title, at least for now in the eyes of history. Australian cruiserweight world champion Jai Opetaia shared his reaction shortly after Crawford's historic victory over Canelo. Speaking with clear admiration, Opetaia said he had scored the fight for Crawford and felt the decision left no room for doubt.
I had him in front. I thought it was convincingly enough. You know, I thought he won, so what a fight.
He then reflected on Crawford's growing legacy, saying that even though the victory was still fresh, the Nebraska star's name now rightly belongs among the all-time greats of the sport. Opetaia emphasized that Crawford has earned respect throughout the boxing world and that his name is now firmly etched into the sport's history.
Too smart. Mate, what a technician.
Are you shocked or not?
Not at all. Not at all. That's how I pictured the fight going. So I pictured the fight going that way. Man, impressive. You know what I mean? Coming up from all those weight divisions. Hit and don't get hit. That's the aim of the game.
Yeah.
Everyone puts him differently in their list, but he's in everyone's list. You know what I mean? He's deserved his respect. He's one of the greats. And that Crawford name, that last name, that's written down in history. So,
however, power was always going to be a central theme in any fight with Canelo. Early signs showed that when he landed clean, especially to the body or in close exchanges, he was able to hurt Crawford. Former heavyweight champion Lennox Lewis gave his candid reaction to the sensational clash between Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez. While he praised the fight overall, Lewis admitted he was somewhat disappointed in Alvarez's performance. He explained that he expected Canelo to throw more punches and fight with greater urgency. Lewis also pointed out that historically, Alvarez has struggled against slick movers like Crawford.
From Canelo, you know, I'm used to Canelo fighting that way all the time. You know, he tried his best. You know, he always has trouble against movers. I was really expecting them to be more punches, more movement by Canelo. Yeah, I mean, it was a situation where he's, Terence Crawford's a tactician, and he throws combinations and he moves, and then, if you try and exchange with him, he's gone already. So you gotta be fast, you gotta punch him when he's punching you.
Lennox Lewis shared his thoughts after Canelo Alvarez's defeat to Terence Crawford. He explained that while Canelo fought in his usual style, it simply wasn't enough against Crawford. Lewis noted that Canelo struggled to impose himself because Crawford's speed, reflexes, and defense made it nearly impossible for him to land clean shots or control the fight.
Like about many times, and I thought that this time he just boxed like he always boxes. And then I felt he couldn't really do nothing against Terence Crawford because Terence Crawford was too quick, too elusive. Anybody would find trouble with him, but Canelo couldn't find him. For Canelo to win a round, I say he won about 3 rounds in that fight. I was actually amazed at the way how Terence Crawford moved and never got hit, and threw combinations because that's what you're supposed to do, throw combinations. So he threw combinations. He wasn't trying to knock out Canelo. But he definitely was throwing a lot of punches,
To most viewers, Crawford's win over Canelo wasn't about power, it was his speed, timing, and ring IQ that made the difference. Crawford forced Canelo to miss, put him in uncomfortable positions, and controlled the rhythm throughout. While Canelo landed some heavy shots, many came only when Crawford allowed the distance to close, and even then, he minimized the damage. Physically, Canelo looked the right size, but it wasn't enough. Former unified welterweight champion Keith Thurman praised Crawford's performance as a true boxing clinic. He said it wasn't just a win, but a showcase of flawless fundamentals, sharp timing, and complete composure at the highest level.
Morning after the big fight, Crawford Canelo. Shout outs to Crawford. You did it, boy. You did it. For those who still aren't quite sure what they witnessed last night, I'm gonna let you know that you witnessed what is called a notorious boxing clinic.
He praised Crawford for neutralizing Canelo's power and pace while controlling the distance from start to finish, something few believed he could achieve at super middleweight.
Notorious. Hit and don't get hit. That's boxing 101, people. It's actually the definition of boxing. For those who don't know the definition of boxing, it's to hit and not get hit. It's almost like a game of tag, to simplify it for you folks, all right? And yes, Crawford was tagging him. Not just with the jab, moving, but he was able to do another key factor.
Crawford's victory not only changed the title holder but also reshaped the narrative of who truly rules the super middleweight division. It raised questions about Canelo's future. At 34, with years of grueling battles behind him, this defeat could mark a turning point, whether he looks to rebuild at a new weight or chase a rematch. He now faces the reality that an undefeated, sharp, and dynamic challenger outboxed him on one of boxing's biggest stages. When asked about Canelo's reputed punching power at super middleweight, Terence Crawford downplayed the concern. He explained that throughout his career he had already faced heavy punchers and handled them well, suggesting Canelo's shots were nothing beyond what he had experienced before.
Have you been hit by anybody that strong before?
I've been hit harder.
No, in a real fight, not a sparring.
In a real fight. Avanesian, I mean not Avanesian, but Mean Machine hit harder than Canelo, to me. To be honest.
Timothy Bradley Jr. didn't hold back when addressing the stakes of Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford. For him, this wasn't just a marquee fight, it was a crossroads moment for Canelo's place in history. Bradley argued that losing to Crawford, who had climbed multiple divisions to take on the challenge, would damage Alvarez's reputation and, by extension, tarnish Mexico's pride in him as a standard-bearer.
Crawford, what people gonna say? You lost to a smaller guy. Where's gonna put him amongst all the Mexican, greats? Where's that gonna put him? Oh, he lost to a smaller guy in Crawford. You know what I'm saying? Most skillful guy on the planet. They don't look good, right? So I think this fight is harder on his career than a Benavidez loss. Way harder. Way more to lose. Way more to...
And that wraps it up. Terence "Bud" Crawford didn't just win a fight, he rewrote history against all odds. Against every doubt, he stepped into the ring with Canelo Alvarez and proved that greatness knows no weight limit. Nights like this show exactly why boxing is called the sweet science, with skill, heart, and legacy all on display. If you felt the electricity of this showdown, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with every fight fan you know, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Where do you place Crawford among the all-time greats? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. The next chapter in boxing is only getting bigger, and you won't want to miss it.